Information security management system is a process involving 4 tasks, each of which may be subdivided in 2 stages. The plan activity is designed to ensure that the context and scope for the information security management system have been correctly established, that all information security risks are identified and assessed, and that a plan for the appropriate treatment of these risks is developed. This description suggests an approach to the planning and documentation of an information security management system that comprises 4 tasks. The relationships between the 4 tasks are illustrated, but we will elaborate more on each of the 4 tasks in the next sections. ISMS documentation is carried out at organization level. Its purpose is to define the scope and context of the proposed system and the approach to information security management that it will embody. It has 5 stages. 3 that initiate the planning process, that is stages 1, 2, and 3, and 2 that complete it, that is stages 8 and 9. Stage 1 defines the scope of the ISMS. The context and scope of the ISMS are defined by considering the nature of the organization, the business area in which it operates, and its location, assets, and technology. Stage 2 defines an ISMS policy. An ISMS policy, often referred to simply as an information security policy, is drawn up. This important document underpins the ISMS and contributes to the traceability and repeatability of its processes. It should, among other things, set up criteria against which security risks to information assets can be evaluated. Stage 3 defines a systematic approach to risk assessment. A document specifying a systematic approach to risk assessment is written. This must include a process for evaluating the likelihood of a risk to an information asset's security requirements and the impact of a breach of them, along with a definition of what constitutes acceptable risk. Stage 8 prepares a statement of applicability. The statement of applicability of the ISMS is completed based on information gathered during risk treatment stage. Stage 9 obtains management approval. The complete ISMS documentation, consisting of the papers drawn up in stages 1, 2, 3, and 4, is submitted to senior management for approval. The asset identification task is carried out at unit level within an organization in light of organization-wide policies set out in stages 1, 2, 3. It uses Stage 1's description of the scope of the ISMS to determine the information assets that are to be protected. During this stage, which is called the Stage 4.1, identification of the assets that are at risk is also conducted. The information assets at risk are identified along with their owners, their locations, their values, and their information security requirements. The results are documented. Also note that, during this stage, the boundaries of what is to be protected is identified, as well as those information assets, media, and systems critical to organizational objectives. The risk assessment task is also carried out at unit level in light of policy set out in stages 1 to 3 and for the assets identified in Stage 4.1. Stages 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4 identify the risks. Stage 4.2 determines systematically the possible threats to the assets identified in the asset identification part of the process. Stage 4.3 identifies vulnerabilities that might allow those threats to become successful attacks on the assets. Stage 4.4 uses the evaluation mechanisms established in Stage 3 to assess the impact of breaches of the assets' security requirements. Stage 5 assess the risks. The risks to information assets are assessed using the risk assessment strategy determined in Stage 3. Each breach of security is assigned a level of risk determined by its likelihood and by its impact on the organization. Stage 6. Identify and evaluate options for the treatment of risks. The risks have their treatment chosen. The choices are to accept the risk, avoid the risk, transfer the risk, or control the risk. A risk is accepted only if it meets the criteria for risk acceptance defined at Stage 3. If the choices to avoid risk or transfer risk to another organization, a suitable means of avoidance or transfer is identified. Otherwise, the choices to control the risk to the asset, in which case the risk is assigned a priority level for treatment. Documents generated in the risk assessment task must present evidence that every risk has been assessed, along with a justification for the outcome, acceptance, avoidance, transfer, or control of each individual assessment. The risk treatment task is again carried out at unit level in light of policies set out in stages 1 to 3. The risks treated are those chosen for control at Stage 6. Stage 7. Select control objectives and controls. For each risk chosen for control at Stage 6, a suitable control or countermeasure must be selected. The risks are treated in order of priority according to the priority levels assigned at Stage 6. An ISMS must not only be planned, it must also be implemented, operated, monitored, reviewed, maintained, and improved. However, we introduce you to the PDCA cycle, which should be undertaken, and it stands for the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. The PDCA cycle is the proposed methodology for the commission and continuous improvement of an ISMS. Central to the PDCA cycle is the simple idea that we learn by doing. In the context of tackling a particular problem, the PDCA cycle relates to the idea that the act of building a solution to a problem leads to a better understanding of that problem, which can in turn lead to building an EU and better solution, and so on. In its generic form, the PDCA cycle consists of the 4 iterated stages: plan, do, check, and act. The purpose of the plan stage is to understand the problem and develop an initial, but fit-for-purpose solution that can be created relatively quickly. In the do stage, the results of the plan stage are implemented and then used. In the check stage, the solution is observed in operation. For the act stage, the current solution and the results of the check stage are used to define a revised problem for initiating the plan stage of the next iteration.